Hello, good afternoon to all of you. It's for me a pleasure to be in this panel session dedicated to fostering grassland opportunities, circular business models, and skills for resilient rural communities. This is a partner event of the European Green Week of this year that is dedicated to the net zero world. So we expect to contribute for the GoGas project to reduce this emission. I would like to remember all of you that this is a public event that is being recorded. So the presentations would be available on the GoGas website in the next day. And we will share this with all the registered participants. Please mute your microphone and ask your question via the chat box during the session. And we will put over the table your main questions and highlights. So for me, it's a pleasure also to have in this session Inge Baum-Oos from the DG Agriculture and Rural Development of the European Commission. Inge is the coordinator for agricultural knowledge and innovation systems. So she is going to offer us, after the presentation of the GoGas project, a very interesting introduction. Okay, so I am going to start with the presentation of GoGas. Some of you are policymakers, others are partners of the projects or other projects that are clustering with GoGas. So it's part of the session to know more in detail these projects. So concerning GoGas, sorry, because I think that I had shared my screen, but it's not possible to pass the slide. So just one moment. Now, sorry. So the GoGas project is an Horizon 2020 project committed to transform grassland to boost the development of bio-based economies in Europe to contribute to the development of this industry, reduce the import from nutrients and dependence on fossil fuels, and of course, strengthen rural communities, creating quality employment, and also contributing to the development in Europe. We had 4 demo sites that are focused in 4 different countries across Europe, in Sweden, in Denmark, in Germany, and the Netherlands, and also some following regions that are located in Hungary, Romania, and Spain. We are 22 partners from 8 different countries, as you can see, and we are going to present in this session practices and resources that can foster the deployment of sustainable value chains and circular agro-food system in Europe. Also showcase the more relevant circular RAS-based business models with a high potential for replications and solutions for carbon removals, and identify policy barriers and potential solutions to enhance the bioeconomy, biodiversity, and valorization of grasslands in Europe. No? From the European to the regional level, we are going to try to identify which are these barriers and how we can contribute with the project. In order to boost this discussion and debate, and the framework of the project has been written a white paper about grassland opportunities. So the session is going to be focused on this white paper. Here you can find the agenda. I introduced previously Inge, so we'll offer the main presentation. And we will continue with our coordinator for GoGas, Philip Grabman. He is working from the Leibniz Institute for Agricultural Engineering and Bioeconomy. And after these introductions, we continue with 3 breakout sessions addressing responding to very specific questions. Okay, so recommendations for technology, for the market development, and also other insights for the strategic plans and also the regulatory barriers that we mentioned before. After these sessions, we will have a panel discussions with different representatives of the key stakeholders for the project for GoGas, from the research perspective, the NGOs, and also the farmers. And we will conclude with the questions session with the audience, with the attendees, and the highlight remarks and GoGas project next steps. So this is going to be the scheme. As I mentioned before, you can use the chat box for your questions. Okay, this session is going to be recorded, and we encourage all of you, if you had Twitter accounts or LinkedIn, to tweet about the session and publish your post with your main ideas. You had here also the post to follow the European Green Week and also the GoRas project. So this is everything. I think I forgot to introduce myself. I am representing here Zavala Innovation Consulting. My name is Susana Garayoa, and I am a journalist. I will try to offer the main insights of this amazing session with this great panel of speakers. So I give the floor to Inge, please. So, Inge?
Sorry, Susanna, you muted me. I wasn't aware.
It was by mistake. Sorry, Inge.
No.
Before you, yeah?
Yeah, can you see the screen now?
Yeah, perfectly.
Okay, good.
Before you start your presentation, maybe I would like to put over the table two main questions, okay? That maybe you can answer later. How is the approach for multi-actor projects that is promoting the sustainable value chains in the agri-food sector? And also that for us, considering that we are working in the research and innovation main projects of the European Union, how Horizon Europe and other European funding lines can support a more sustainable use of grassland, and also how can contribute to the creation of innovative circular business models.
Yes. Thank you, Susanna. That's exactly what I prepared for you. So I'll start with setting the scene and explaining you definitely also the different funding sources that you can use for your purposes. So if we start explaining with how multi-actor projects, and also multi-actor projects are funded by Horizon Europe. More than half of them are multi-actors. So if you want to get into Horizon, it's very important to understand the multi-actor approach. But we also have under the cap, and that's how maybe, I'm not sure how GoGrass started, but I am aware of James Gaffey and his first operational group, which was funded under the cap as an operational group, also on these grass-based models. So these two types of projects, they all follow the interactive innovation model, and that's their strength. Because what you see here in the square, the conditions for such projects are that you collaborate between various actors, so not researchers alone, but various actors who have complementary types of knowledge and expertise. So it can be scientific, practical, organizational, etc. And we want you to co-create all along the project, work together, bring your knowledge and expertise in at every moment. And this will lead, that's our experience now after 9 years, to a much quicker spreading of the solutions and opportunities ready to implement into practice. Why? Because we have the end users involved in our projects. They will help to steer the project in the sense that it is applicable, that it is feasible for them. And it also creates a kind of pride that they also own this project, and they will boost peer-to-peer to their colleagues so that these things can put much more quickly into practice. We accompany this with a network to share all that knowledge, which is quite important. We have a big EU-wide knowledge reservoir and growing every day. And this accompanies all these projects. I will tell you a little bit more about that later. But first, to give you the bigger picture, EIP Agri is having on the one side this funding from the agricultural policy. That's either at national level or in the regionalized countries, it's the regional authorities who do the calls. They call for innovation projects of so-called operational groups. Operational meaning making something that is usable. We can pay for the preparation of the project, so the whole application, because you need to look for these different actors and find a consensus between them, and that's not always easy, so you need time and you get money for that from us. Then you can implement your project, which we pay, and we also have innovation support services which capture any type of grassroots innovative idea that can come up and help then the people with the ideas to find the right connections, the right partners, and build it out into an application that is ready for selection. So that's the CAP side. And then if you look to the right side, there we have Horizon. We started in Horizon 2020. We continue in Horizon Europe. There you have the usual research projects for, let's say, researchers only, and more of these multi-actor projects. And we have two specific types which you might want to use after, for instance, a successful multi-actor project. You might want to spread your solution. And therefore, we have these thematic networks that spread existing scientific or practical knowledge. And we also have advisory networks that also help spreading across Europe these ready to apply solutions. And in these multi-actor projects, it's strongly recommended, so you get some extra points in the evaluation, if you also involve a number of operational groups, because we want to make the link between the local level and this European level where things are much broadly spread. In the middle, you see the CAP network and the national CAP networks. We have one at EU level, and in every country we have CAP networks. They help to disseminate, to communicate, to make meetings with other people, to share what you are doing. And they also help to put in a simple way, very concise, but with anything you want to add, from videos to fact sheets to whatever, YouTube films, we put all that in a unique knowledge repository where you can find the content of the project in a so-called practice abstract, not a scientific, but a practice abstract that practitioners can understand in an easy language. And you can find also the context of the people who are involved in these operational groups or multi-actor projects. So that's on our EU CAP network website, and we hope you can make a lot use of that. Now, you also spoke in your introduction about the ESCI. I don't want to dwell too long on that. Agriculture, and it's broader than agriculture, by the way, knowledge and innovation system. What does it mean? It's how you organize the interaction of persons, organizations, and institutes who either use or produce knowledge and innovation for agriculture and anything related to it. And the aim is to really create a regional, national innovation ecosystem that enhances knowledge flows between anybody in the country that uses or produces knowledge. There's a little link here below that can help you if you want to know more. Just to tell you that we didn't invent ESCI. This comes really from the researchers who in 2008 told us that the classical linear model, research produces something, and then it should somehow automatically trickle down to those who would like to apply it, that this doesn't function anymore. That's why we invented this interactive innovation model and this involvement of the end users and also multipliers in the project. And just to remind you, it's not just the A of agriculture, but it's really, as you see here on top of the slide, whatever farming and rural activities automatically relate to. So there's no hesitation about grass, it's definitely in the picture, but also environment, climate, biodiversity, landscape, consumer links, citizen questions even, food and non-food systems, including also the retail and the processors that are linked to it. So it's really much broader than the narrow agriculture. And we like, of course, as much as possible to have the farmer in the center, but linked to all these other people, like also education, I didn't mention yet. Education, the media are important to spread the knowledge about certain solutions. Some organizations, NGOs, advisors, researchers, etc. And we are asking now in the new CAP policy that all countries make a well-functioning ESCI strategy in order to bring actors together on a structured and regular basis, that there's a system behind, that they see each other regularly, that advisors and researchers and farmers connect and talk to each other. They often have acted in the past in silos. We want to really break that through so that we have a continuous interaction to speed up knowledge exchange. Knowledge flows is our mantra, innovation, and of course, the end of it all, our aim is to implement into practice. And there we like to use this little quote from Woodrow Wilson, a president of the USA, to say, I not only use the brains that I have, but all that I can borrow. So as a researcher, it's very useful to know the practical context and what practitioners are accepting. And we've seen in many of our projects that they also come with additional solutions that researchers would not have developed on their own. So the system works very well. Now, what is our scope? And we cover all our CAP objectives, from competitiveness oriented to environmental, biodiversity, climate change. But here the last three also are important for you, because for vibrant rural areas, literally in our legislation, it says including circular bioeconomy. And that's what you are doing, I think. Where are we? We started in 2014 with the legislation of the CAP and Horizon 2020. All member states but one joined immediately. We already have more than 3,000 operational groups running or finished, with still 2.5 years to go. So more than €1 billion is already under the CAP being spent. And what we are very proud on is that in our next CAP draft plans, well, not draft anymore, they are already approved, we have almost 3 times more operational groups for a shorter period of only 5 years. This means that we have tripled the number of operational groups in the period that has started in January of this year. And as you saw from the objectives, we will have much more variety in interventions, not just as the official title of the EIP is Agriculture, Productivity and Sustainability. You will have seen from all the 9 CAP objectives that it's much more than that. Now, on the Horizon side, in total, if you start counting from 2014 until now, we have already 352 multi-actor projects. And we counted also the budget until from the former period. So we spent in that period €1 billion. And in the next period, it has been extended to the whole cluster 6. So we will have many more. You already see that coming with the 352. Also people coming from the biodiversity angle and many other angles see the advantages of working together with end users to come to practical solutions, to have real impact of their projects. But for us, it's also a challenge because we have an increasing volume of practice-oriented knowledge to be managed. And also that we are tackling, we are preparing for a fully fledged EU knowledge reservoir with an artificial intelligence search and a place where you can put all your material on which you might have on your own website. Now, coming to multi-actor projects, you wanted to tell me something about that. The whole issue to have more impact of that kind of projects, because the outcomes are more demand-driven, looking to the needs, that they are more reliable because they have been tested in practice, and more relevant also for the society and the end users. And we want the end users here, as you would sometimes see in applied research, we don't want them to see as a study object. We want to really mobilize them and use their practical and local knowledge and also entrepreneurial skills. They sometimes come with good ideas to develop solutions And it also creates this psychology of we are owner of what has produced here, so we will use it. So your impact improves in this way. It speeds up the acceptance and the take-up of ideas and solutions that you have developed. And the requirements are on the next two slides. First of all, targeting real needs, problems, challenges. And I will give you, in the example that James gave me, an illustration of that. We also want that the project demonstrates this composition of the consortium, that we have this balanced choice of actors who have these complementary types of knowledge. We want that the project results should be ready for practice and broadly implemented. So also the communication, we want to see that it goes into the usual channels, that it doesn't stay in a report somewhere in a cupboard in a European office, but that you really do your best to bring it towards the ground, towards practice. You must demonstrate in your project proposal how you intend to use existing practice and tacit knowledge, which will come from your practitioners. How you will facilitate this, because researchers working with practitioners is not always obvious. They speak a different language, they think in different time horizons. A practitioner, a farmer wants to see things happen in a month, if possible, maybe in 6 months, but has more problems with waiting a longer time, while you as researchers don't have the same feelings. So sometimes it's useful to have somebody in between who is facilitating that, and advisors can do that very well. We also, which is something, in fact, each project proposal should do, we would like to see your added value, that you're not just repeating something that has been done before. And then here come then the two last bullets. They are all about dissemination and communication. You must disseminate and illustrate, demonstrate how it will result in practical knowledge that are easy, understandable, and freely accessible. We have these practice abstracts, especially for that, but also you should use your own channels that you can find that reach the end users. And it should also fit into our European database. Now, I come to an example because examples often illustrate much easier what I'm saying in abstract terms than what you could do with an example. And I took James Gaffey's project. Unfortunately, I cannot stay until the panel, but I'm sure James is there and can explain. So this is an example of an operational group in Ireland, an interactive innovation project, which was funded by the CAP, where maybe, I'm not sure how your project started, but I'm sure it has had an influence on GoGrass. And the challenges here were that livestock-heavy systems have significant environmental challenges, ammonia emissions, you call it. Ireland has a lot of grassland, and in Ireland, they have even the largest share of agri-related greenhouse gas emissions. And the Irish farmers were faced with the task of reducing those emissions. So they were looking for a solution with an operational group, and these green biorefineries can unlock the full potential of grass, not just eating it by cows, but creating protein from ruminants, along with additional materials and energy for the markets. And it's a solution for emission challenges, it's a solution for protein challenges, and it's also for the farmer a kind of diversification. It's not just grass, but also gas and another number of outputs. And my last slide is just to show you the test project that James had in his operational group, and to tell you that we agree with Thomas Alva Edison, the inventor of the light bulb, as you know, that the value of an idea really lies in the using of it. And having potential innovative knowledge is one thing, and we've had a lot of this in research in the past decades, But what we want to do is turn it into reality. And that's another issue. There you need to think differently. And that's why we have our interactive innovation model. So that's it. What we are doing with our ACEs, our operational groups, our multi-actor projects, is trying to get them linking across the EU in order to speed up creativity and immediate practice application, and also to have better connectivity. Partners can find each other in this database and this quicker circulation of information. So thanks for listening you and your attention. If there's anything I can help more, you have my email there, and I hope this helps for your purposes.
Thank you very much, Inge. I think that you have offered an excellent presentation. Also remarking some ideas, for example, co-creation, through the agriculture knowledge and innovation system, to put in common these ideas, this meeting point for different key actors in the society, not only on your field. And I think that this is a key idea. Also, make real innovation, that this is one of the main goals that we are trying also with the business models of GoGrass. And you have offered also key insights to have a successful Horizon Europe project and continue working on it. So thank you very much for that. And I had to say that your background is the nicest of the presentation panel. So thank you for being so oriented to the detail and a bit fan of GoGrass.
Wish you all the best with your projects, and I'm sure I will hear about it. Bye.
Bye, Inge. Thank you very much. So now we can continue with the other presentation. So we had the pleasure to have in this session Philip Brandman, who is the GoGrass coordinator from the Leibniz Institute for Agricultural Engineering and Bioeconomy. So Philip is going to offer to us a general overview of the demo cases in the 4 countries that we mentioned before, what are also the main obstacles, economic, regulatory, technological, that should be taken into account to increase the potential of bioeconomy and the grasslands valorization, and how to overcome these obstacles. We need to invest in skill development, also this collaboration support that also Inge remarked before, and the risk assistance and policies. So Philip, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Susanna, for the introduction. I hope you can hear me very well and see also my first slide with actually a lot of names on it, kind of pointing out that this is really a multi-actor issue. So I see also this event as contributing to this approach that was just outlined and explained by Inge van Oost. So what I'm going to do is mainly to summarize the outcome from the white paper, the policy paper, after 42 months of the project, and with many interactions also with politicians, policy officers at different levels. And well, this is of course focused on a bit on GoGrass, but we hope that all the discussions we're going to have it can be applied to other projects. So I'm providing some food for thought for the later breakout sessions, where we hope to collect some of your insights on this. Right. So the project visions to start with here was or is to create value chains, new value chains based on unused material from grasslands, including later on the scaling up of the existing business cases and replicating the cases and models in other geographical areas. So this is, I think, very common in many such kind of endeavors. But really this vision we have was to ultimately create additional benefits for farmers and for society as a whole in terms of environmental protection and the same. So the real question to us now is, having this vision, how does the roadmap towards it look like? And what are important milestones on the way to this vision and what actions and measures should be prioritized. Also, what tools and instruments are needed actually to create an environment that is conducive to reaching this vision. And we really hope that our interaction during this afternoon will contribute to answering some of these questions at least. So the project itself, the white paper, aims to demonstrate a wide range of opportunities, but also the requirements for the demonstration cases, for the technological and business solutions, as well as some best practices. And here the focus is on value chains, on products, resources, innovations, policy gaps, and best practices that we have discussed, and now would like to validate with you as being players and stakeholders from business, farming, policymaking, and civil society. Okay, to start with, I would like to shortly give you an overview of the 4 cases that we developed in, or are developing in the GoGrass project, with very specific grass-based technology solutions, contributing to innovative value chains and products in 4 different countries, plus 3 follower countries, which are not shown here, but are as important to the project as they can be. So we have one case where the main product of the value chain is the biochar production coming out of a key technology, the carbonization of late harvest grassland cuttings from landscape protection areas. Then in another case in the Netherlands, the key technology is the extraction of fibers from roadside and nature conservation grasses to produce paper and packaging. In the use case, demo case in Sweden, the aim product is bedding material from bricketing reed canary grass. Last but not least, in Denmark, we have farm-scale green biorefineries using fresh grass actually to produce as a main product organic proteins, but also some other additional value, high-value byproducts. So these cases are very emblematic, and they are all based on grass as raw material. They are quite heterogeneous in terms of the origin and qualities of the raw materials, products, byproducts, and value chains. And they also differ very much in terms of the business models and the business environment. So we have, for example, in the case of Germany, we have mainly science-to-science development business models, science to business. In the Dutch case, we see some partnerships with private and public entities. In the Swedish case, we see some farms very much engaging with businesses. And in the Danish case, we see a lot of business to business and science to business models developing there. Okay, where do we stand with these cases in terms of the innovation types and the challenges? Using this framework here, which describes, I would say, 4 typical innovation types, type 1 being substitute products, type 2 being mainly new processes, type 3 with focus mainly on new products, and type 4 related more to new behaviors. We can roughly, as first guess, say, okay, the demo cases of the project are located as shown here, with different degrees of innovations, some with a stronger focus on products, others on processes, and others on organizational development. Why is this so interesting, actually, is because each of these different types of innovations, no matter whether they are incremental or radical, they face very specific challenges, actually. So, for example, the type 1, which comes pretty close to the case that we see in Sweden, has to do a lot with the competitiveness of the new products with the existing products some of them already well established, but also securing the feedstock supply and integrating the new product into existing value chains. In general, we could say that all the demo cases have some kind of new processes involved, and therefore they struggle always with improved efficiencies and viabilities, some regulation adaptations that need to be adapted, or knowledge gaps, which hinder, let's say, the further development of the technologies and the cases. When we take as a type 3 innovation the production of biochar from landscape material in Germany, we see that acceptance sometimes plays a big role. Also, we see regulatory barriers that need to be dealt with. Very often it takes quite a long time to reach the final product market maturity, and lacks sometimes of investments into R&D. So these are the challenges. And for the type 4, which is a very complex type of innovation involving some new behaviors, very often a willingness to chance is missing. Logistics are a limitation, also regulations and path dependencies. So the question is how to overcome all these challenges, how to deal with them, with the objective to actually reach a high level of readiness. As you can see here, this is from a first assessment of readiness levels of different cases. So this was actually published in the journal Open Innovation. And what we can see here is that the different cases here present very different readiness levels. As in particular, we see that the evolution of the cases is much higher in case of Denmark and Sweden, but also, but we see a bit lower readiness levels in the case of Netherlands and Germany, and of course the follower cases, which are which are basically starting. We can also say in general that innovation readiness and technology readiness levels are quite high compared to the consumer readiness and the business readiness. So that seems to be a need to catch up, mainly in these fields related to business development, customer readiness, and the same. But it's not only about developing the businesses and the technologies, it's also there's also the need to develop the environment, the context, the business context in which these innovations may hopefully mature and replicate and scale up further. And the graph you show here is just a general representation showing that these demo cases are not in a vacuum, but they are kind of influenced very much by what's happening on the markets, what's happening in terms of rules, regulations, training, funding, technology and knowledge, which is very important, and capacity development. We did an assessment of 18 business cases or businesses throughout Europe, businesses which are grass-based, and actually wanted to know how the business owners, how they perceive the supportiveness of the business environments. And what we see here is that there's a perception of a higher supportiveness in terms of when it comes to technology development and knowledge creation, as well as infrastructure, provision of infrastructure. But we see some, let's say, critical issues regarding low supportiveness when it comes to the provision of raw materials, the training and education, and market development, as well as consumer development and institutional development. So it means there is, in a way, in some aspects, the business context is supportive, but still a lot needs to be done. And the question is here what to prioritize and what specific measures should be taken. So we aim to come up in the project with such recommendations for policymaking, but also business development at regional, national, and EU level. I'm summarizing here very briefly some of the recommendations, the most main important recommendations from our white paper, which include at the regional level, first of all, adopting a holistic view on valorizing grasslands, supporting the conversion of general land, especially abandoned land or land that is threatened being abandoned, into grassland, and to ensure that enough biomass is available, that this biomass is produced in areas which do not compete with food production, but that also fulfill the requirements in terms of qualities for example, biorefinery processes. We very much see the need of an alignment of government initiatives. There are quite a lot of initiatives, but very often they are not kind of very well coordinated and providing the needed push effect. Consumer awareness, especially the awareness of the multifunctionality of grasslands, is an important field of action to reach higher consumer readiness levels. Then valorizing the ecosystem services will be important because we see that all of these businesses really depend on creating also some revenues from all these additional services they provide to society. Then a bit more specific recommendations about including biochar in fertilizer regulations and supporting advisory services for circular businesses. At the EU level, we found, sorry, I forgot one very important recommendation related to supporting cooperation and capacity building at regional, national level. At the EU level, the focus, in our opinion, should be very much on promoting opportunities for diversification, maintaining the area of grasslands, avoiding conversion of grasslands and abandonment, removing contradictory and restrictive legislations, and valorizing the carbon content in grasslands and creating favorable business environments actually for this valorization, as well as providing financial incentives to encourage carbon farming. Well, monitoring systems should also be provided at EU level and national levels to really identify and manage better any kind of trade-offs that exist there. That's it from my side. I have still a slide here with some, let's say, guiding questions, which I'm not going to go into now, but rather pick them up later in our panel and maybe in the breakout sessions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Philip. I think that you have offered an insightful summary of the white paper, especially with the policy recommendations from the European to the local level as well, and which is the potential of the business models. So now we are going to continue with the breakout sessions. So we are a little bit delayed in the program. We had foreseen 45 minutes for these breakout sessions divided in 3 groups addressing the different response to the questions that we are putting in the panel, no? The recommendations for the technology development and skills, for the market development, and also for the strategic plans and regulatory barriers. So for the attendees that are participating in the session, I think that they can push the button to enter into the panels, right, Natalie? Yeah, so it's how it works. So now are 40:45. So we will get back at 15:30, okay? Okay, I think that we are getting back. to the main room of the session, so we can continue with the key insights of the breakout sessions. So you had 2 minutes, our facilitators and reporters. So I give the floor, I think, for the first one, Uffe Jorgensen and Richard Orozco.
Yes, thank you, Susana. So I will do my best to try to summarize in a nutshell what was discussed. So the breakout session began by assuring the promising potential of biorefineries to produce many different products. At the moment in Denmark, they are working with animal feed, but in the future they are already thinking about moving to human consumption, but that's still in the very long term. Then the discussion moved interestingly to the support that developing these technologies need. So there was some participants argued that the support should go towards technologies, while others think that the support should go towards the producers. So this was very interesting. There is still no answer on that. Then we also talk about how important it is that to start something big as a biorefinery is important to put it in small components, into value chain components, and start easy to then move towards the more high-tech complex solutions. Yes, regarding the skills, there is really bioeconomy bringing together many different sectors. So coupling between disciplines of agronomy and engineering and farming is becoming more and more important. And one example to increase the skills in this would be to include students, younger generations into visits where they can get inspired and see what opportunities there are available for them. And yes, the conversation also moved towards the valorizing ecosystem services and whether the valorization should come from the resource, being the grasslands, or within the products that contain the carbon content. So yes, the last point that was mentioned is the need to revitalize the farmer cooperatives, because no one single person or farmer can make these things happen. So the need for cooperation in farmers and overall stakeholders is very important. Okay, I think that's more or less. Thank you.
Susanna, I think you're muted.
Thank you. Thank you, Richard. Let's try to summarize the headlines of the breakout session. So we continue with Natalie and Anna Paulus.
Yeah. I'm going to present. We were able to touch upon 4 different topics. One of them was the green transition movement that is happening. Mostly talked about Scandinavia. And here we talked about how misleading this green transition could be, and a solution for that. We talked about awareness raising on the challenges of biomass and processing biomass, and knowledge sharing in the bio-based industry as a very important factor. We also looked into how to link it back to the value chain and how we can create opportunities for different stakeholders and these solutions around biomass. The second topic was measuring carbon capture, as there is no system now to monetize savings, for example, carbon farmers. And we brainstorm on the ideas on carbon capture and calculation, and to connect it to market development of the bio-based products. The third topic was to the gap between research and practice, and I think it was also mentioned in one of the topics in the very beginning. And this could also link back to awareness raising, but not to the public, but to industry. And the last one is we talked about better valorization of biochar from grass. Germany raised some concerns that it's very difficult to mediate between the market and feedstock producers. And we've heard a solution in Sweden where they introduced a new system to use biochar when planting trees in the city. and the positive impact took off, and the other cities followed the same process. So it's a great example of innovative market adaptation that could be useful.
Okay, thank you very much, Anna. So the last session was facilitated and also take notes by Caroline Brand. So.
Hi, yeah. So what we were looking more at the CAP from strategic plans and the barriers, the regulatory barriers. So how could CAP better support the value chains and actually increase the valorization of grasslands? And as we started to discuss, there was a question that came up quite a few times: is CAP actually the right tool to incentivize? Because CAP, its main objective is about food production, and there is actually a restriction that means only 5% of grasslands can be changed to arable. So is it more restrictive and not looking at the right focus rather than incentivizing the innovation and the farmers and looking at the markets for the grass products? So that was quite interesting. Apparently there are some other tools that could also be used, and we shouldn't just look at CAP, but we didn't have the time to go into those. One of the barriers that was raised is the markets. Actually, are there markets in there? And if there are, do the farmers know about it? And if not, how can we involve the farmers to be educated and learn about the potentials of continuing to grow grass or change the grass into a valuable asset? Get them involved. And I think that led us to the opportunities is an integration of all the stakeholders, up and downstream. So how can we bring them all together? How can everybody work together to incentivize the farmers to not just continue having the grassland, but incentivize them to actually turning that into a valuable asset? And learn from other countries as well. And that can be part of the education system. So the education could be educating the new upcoming farmers from agriculture colleges and universities, farming associations, and also sharing knowledge with the existing farmers. And I think that's one point was raised from Spain, from Nestor. He said we need to very much look at the opportunities for the farmers, because in Spain, a lot of the farmers are leaving the rural lands because they can't see their growth. They can't see how their business is sustainable. So they're actually abandoning everything. So that would impact the CAP objective for food production and also grassland as well. So I think in summary, there was a really good discussion and a lot to build on.
Thank you very much, Caroline. Well done. Very valuable insights. So now we had finished with the breakout sessions. So we had the panel discussion with our coordinator, Philip, who is going to introduce our speakers for this interesting discussion.
Thank you, Sana. Okay. So after this, I think really interesting breakout sessions. Now I think we try to digest all that we heard and kind of come to some ways to move forward. And for that, we have invited 4 panelists to our group here, and I would like to shortly introduce. First, starting with Maria Lupkol. Actually, we have been talking a lot about farmers and farming community, and Maria Lupkol is actually a project manager at the Farmers Association in Brandenburg in Germany. And her main field is maybe not exactly about grasslands, but she's working a lot on climate change management actions, mitigation, adaptation actions, in farms in the agricultural sector. She holds a MSc in agricultural studies from Hohenheim University, and maybe she also can say a few more words about her interests. I would also like to invite Rika Lundsgaard to the panel, who's an agricultural policy advisor at the Danish Society for Nature Conservation, which a topic that came up over and over again, I think in the breakouts also. And interestingly, she was previously a manager at IFAM, so I think to have this business perspective in the panel is also very valuable. As a panelist, I would like to introduce also Maria Daskali. She's a policy officer, EU Agriculture and Bioenergy. She graduated from Agri Paris Tech with a specialization in public policy and environmental strategies. And last but not least, we have James Gaffey in the panel, who's a co-director of the Circular Bioeconomy Research Group at Munster Technological University. And James has been a principal investigator on quite a number of EU projects funded with focus on circular bioeconomy. And he has been also scientific coordinator of the BBI and IST biochain initiatives and some other positions in different gremia there. So there's more to say, of course, on our panelists, but I would like to start and give the floor to the panelists himself and to give some statements actually on the topics we have discussed. And then after your statements, would like to come to some questions from my side and later open the floor also to questions from the audience. So yeah, maybe we can start with James and your contribution or initial statement, as you have been involved in several projects, and the biorefinery glass project, which is kind of a best practice project as far as I know. And one question from my side would be is, what is actually the roadmap to mobilize these opportunities and this development of green biorefineries in Europe? What are your lessons learned and recommendations? Please.
Thanks, Philippe, and it's very nice to be invited to this meeting. And it's actually been a couple of weeks. So 2 weeks ago, I went to see the amazing work that GoGrass is doing in Denmark as part of the Danish side of the project. So I learned a lot in terms of what's happening there. From our side, I guess the biorefinery glass project was EIP Agri funded. Inge Van Oost mentioned it. So we worked closely with a cooperative in Ireland called Carberry, and we were focused on trying to address some of the challenges that the agri sector faces in Ireland. So we're kind of unique in Europe in that we produce an awful lot of grass. So around 90% of our total agricultural land is grassland, and 50% of our total land area is in the form of grass. But we face challenges. We're predominantly livestock in terms of our agriculture sector, and about 38% of our total national emissions come from agriculture. And at the same time, despite having so much grass and potentially so much protein available, we actually import around 3 million tons of protein ingredients for the animal feed sector on an annual basis. So we're very reliant on imports of soybean meal, for example, from South America. And so there seems to be a better way, not just for Ireland, but for Europe, if we can learn how to use our grassland more effectively, not just to produce protein, but also to produce different materials. The EIP Agri project and some of the work we've been doing subsequently has allowed us to work directly with farmers on demonstrating a technology for processing grass into different protein products and other high-value products, as well as looking at the bioenergy potential of the model as well. And working directly with the farmers and the co-ops, the dairy and the pig co-ops, for us as researchers, I think has been really beneficial in terms of exposure of the project in Ireland. So if we did this within a university setting, I don't think we would have got the same level of interest that we currently have from the farming community in Ireland, because we've been doing it with the farmers, and what we've had is a lot of farmers coming along to see the demonstrations in operation, a lot of agri-industry participants, schools, agricultural colleges, stakeholders like this who have come along and have been very interested in the grass biorefinery work that we've been doing. So I think demonstration is really key in terms of building visibility, and then demonstration within an operational setting, like within a farming organization on the farm, working with farmers, has really helped to improve the knowledge around this and to improve the visibility around this, where now it's seen almost as a really key potential diversification opportunity for Irish agriculture. It's on the agenda now in a way that it wouldn't have been. I think in terms of other kind of key learnings that we've had on the journey, I think there's lots of potential for regions across Europe to benefit massively from this area of green biorefineries. And obviously you have different tiers. You have some people who are very advanced in terms of what you're doing. A few years ago, we were doing very little, and we've managed to do quite a bit over the last few years, but we've been very lucky to learn from partners in Denmark, partners in the Netherlands who've been doing this for longer than we have. So I think doing our own research on the ground, but also learning from the knowledge that's been generated across Europe and linking together the different stakeholders with that knowledge is really important. Also building the sort of bioeconomy and green biorefineries into traditional advisory services for the farming community, I think is also a really important aspect, where you have lots of, in Ireland, we have a really good agri-advisory system, which works closely with farmers in all parts of Ireland and all sectors, but bioeconomy is still not really a kind of mainstream topic among those agricultural advisors. So I think building links between the research we're doing along with to the farmers through these advisory systems is really an important aspect. And then finally, I think the integration of the different market actors. We talked in our breakout session with Uffe and Morten and some of the different partners there around the BioRefine project, which is happening in Denmark, which integrates the kind of cooperative structures with feed co-ops and grass seed co-ops participating. I think we've had a similar experience in Ireland, where we've been trying to build on the co-op structures that already exist to try and implement this, to try and build the capacity with participation of different farmers, building on the dairy co-ops on the grass side, potentially on the beef sector as well, and tying this in with some of the other primary processing sectors where you can build resilience, because a big challenge for example, the pig industry in Ireland is trying to find sustainable feed so they can produce a premium product. So you're creating that local resilience by using grass better. So those are, I think, some of the initial findings from and activities I think we could do to try and mobilize the sector.
So thank you, James. I think you gave us some good insights and key learnings. I got a bit the impression that you're already there where we all want to get, but I'm sure you still have some things to deal with. And there I would like to hand over to Maria Lupko, who's actually the farmer's voice, to see, let's say, from the perspective of the farmers, where maybe the main obstacles are also in the policy, and the obstacles that prevent actually the farmers from fully benefiting, from all these positive effects that come with this business model. So please, Ms. Lupko, if you would like to give us your statement.
Yeah, thank you, Thank you very much, Mr. Grundmann. I hope everybody can hear me.
We can, yes, yeah.
Awesome. Is it possible that I just share my screen with you?
Of course, yes.
Alrighty.
Stop sharing, then you can
All right. I hope everybody can see my screen. So thank you very much for the lovely introduction, and I hope I can give you a bit of an insight of what we might find problematic in the upcoming CAP and what is going on in Germany, Brandenburg, and what is happening with our farmers and why they might not jump on every project that is coming around, and what we could do to maybe change that. So just a quick introduction of myself. My name is Maria Lubkoll, and I am the project manager of the project Klimabauern Berlin-Brandenburg. Through this project, our connection to the Go Grass project was associated through the last couple of weeks, I'd say. And I'm very grateful that I had the chance to have the Go Green project on my panel as well a couple of weeks ago, mainly because normally I speak with my farmers about climate change adaptation strategies, but at the moment, wetland is one of our main topics in Brandenburg. So this means how can we get it wet again to reduce emissions? And this is very, very difficult as there is a conflict going on between the farmers doing their normal farming work and being held captive by the all big word climate change, and that they need to reduce their emissions. And this can just be done through forestation or through getting the wetland wet again. And this is something that has been a huge problem over the last weeks, maybe over the last couple of months, actually. And we are looking for solutions, what to do if our grasslands, if our arable lands are turning wet. Because at the moment there is no market. And if we lose all the land, and we are talking about 264,000 hectares that this will be, that are in danger of becoming wet again, we have no idea how to be economically valuable any longer in our region. We are losing our value, and the farmers just don't know how to continue any longer. So doing something else with grassland could be an opportunity, definitely, because the moment we are not allowed to have arable land on wetland any longer, and it is supposed to become grassland, then we just need a new market. But the problem with new markets at the moment is, and I'm pretty sure the other groups have talked about it, is that the market is not there yet. There are no products that really can afford a new income for farmers. They lose all the valuable incomes that they have and can work with at the moment. So money is the driving force behind every step a farmer is doing. And right now, we don't have any idea how we can generate more value for the farmer. And the farmer is really trying to just pay their bills. This is a main problem that we have found, and that being a farmer that tries to be economically, ecologically, and sustainably in a balance is very hard at the moment, because everybody is having a look at ecological problems, maybe at the sustainable problems, but never on the economical factor.
Sorry, Maria, for interrupting. Apparently, we can only see the first slide of your presentation.
Yeah, this is all correct. This was just
okay.
Yeah.
So sorry. Okay.
No, all good, all good. But because not many of you have
just in case
project. I think it's okay to show this. Yeah, so in the end, just to make a point, we try to add more value to our grassland. And this will be done if we can have something like a, how do we call it at the moment, a environment climate bonus that we are actually pushing for to get this through the CAP, so that economical value is added to grassland. As long as grassland is just plainly there to be ecological, farmers have no reason to build any value chain around it, because they already do quite a bit of stuff on the ecological part. But the economical part has been a very critical factor, especially in Brandenburg, as we are facing many droughts, needing to feed our livestock. It has been a problem for the last couple of years. And so if you want to work with farmers a bit more on what they actually need, then it would be lovely if you could have a look how to actually work on the economical factor. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for this statement, and in particular also the you made a suggestion also for an instrument, as I understood, for the CAP, that I would like to hand over to Marilla now, because we were discussing this in the other group. But now I just read a chat in the chat that Ms. Lundsgaard, you will have to leave us at 4 o'clock. Is that right? So would it be okay? That's unfortunate, but maybe we give you the opportunity for your statement first before you have to leave. But your mic is maybe switched off, or we can't hear you yet.
That's all?
Yes, now we can hear you well. Yes.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you well.
Great. Thank you so much. So thank you for this. I can stay for another couple of minutes. It's not it's 6 o'clock, 4 o'clock sharp. But anyhow, I will speak from the environmental NGO perspective, and because you're also very versed in what grass can do. And from our point of view, the conversion of grain to grass is inevitable in order to create a more sustainable food system. We see this as the most central issue in a sense, because it relates to hundreds of thousands of hectares where we can convert from one type of crop that really doesn't use the solar energy very efficiently to another type of crop that that are tiny little solar panels all year round nearly. And because we can at the same time produce more protein and produce more biomass, and at the same time grass ticks all the boxes that we as society require farm crops to do. So climate, biodiversity, leaching, soil stability, everything, you name it under the sun. And so for us, from environmental point of view, and what I relate to now is particularly the work that goes on in Denmark. So the alternative protein production, where we don't only have grass in order to feed the cattle, but we also have grass in order to feed pigs and poultry. So from our point of view, the perspectives are huge and very promising. And I think also from a societal perspective, that this is an environmental technique or technology which is understandable for a lot of people, because it is grass. It is not some very highly advanced new technology. Of course, we need to be able to process and have the biorefineries and so on, and that in itself is a challenge. But as such, it is an understandable and technology that where we can converse, we can keep on talking and communicating with the farmers, the organic farmers, the conventional farmers, the politicians, because it is something where we don't say as an environmental organization, you need to reduce your production. We say you need to convert your production, but maybe have a production which is as high as it was before. So, so from our point of view, the biological, the environmental, the agricultural, and also the so to speak communicative aspects of this are so promising. And I think that we can really build an understanding between those of us who work with the environmental aspects of this and those of and the farming community, where they, of course, they, like the previous talker was talking about, they don't have any money, they have huge debts and so on, but grass can ensure a continued production, but in a much more environmentally satisfying way. So I think I just want to say that, because all of you know everything about grass anyways. So it's more from this environmental point of view.
Yeah, thank you. That was very, very valuable. And I think now we have seen some positions highlighting, that say, the opportunities, but also the obstacles. And the question to me then is now, what changes are actually needed, yeah, to create this environment which is somehow supportive and would allow to reconcile, you know, the trade-offs between the economics on one side, the market efficiencies, but also the environmental expectations. And I think that Marilla Dascali is the right person maybe here to give some inputs, ideas for this. Please.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me and everything, thinking about bird life for this very interesting event. Just a small introduction of BirdLife International. So BirdLife, it's an NGO, international NGO, which focus on birds conservation, of course, as the name says. And we are present in all the continents. We are a grass-rooted partnership. And I work for the European and Central Asia Secretariat. I'm leading there the agriculture and land use program. And when I said that we are a grassroots partnership, meaning that we represent our partners, and our partners are bird lovers, nature conservationists, and things like that. So dealing with biodiversity on a daily and ground basis. So regarding the grasslands, I think that sustainable managed grasslands are a critical piece of the puzzle in the EU's effort to tackle biodiversity and the climate crisis that are intertwined. Considering that the alarming conservation status of grasslands habitat, it is necessary to increase support for low-intensity grassland management and to optimize the provision of essential ecosystem services from these habitats, because grasslands are valuable habitats providing different ecosystem services, like it was mentioned before. Services like water retainment. When we need that water, it's the new gold, and it's going to be a really scarce resource. It can also help preventing soil erosion, it sequester carbon, and so on. And they also shelter a very rich biodiversity, especially the semi-natural ones. But in EU, 30% of the natural and semi-natural grasslands have disappeared between 1967 and 2007. So maybe now in 2023, the percentage that of grassland lost, it's even higher. And when grasslands disappear, the species that are dependent on these habitats, like butterflies, wild pollinators, birds, they also disappear. This is why we're seeing the population of the different taxes that I just mentioned completely decreasing. And from the latest European Environmental Agency, They did a report and they looked at the Annex 1 grassland habitats, the Annex 1 of the Birds and Habitats Directive, and what they saw and what their findings is that mainly 84% of these habitats are in an unfavorable status, which is huge. The main pressure on these habitats are, first of all, really bad management practices, like intensive mowing frequencies, the use of fertilizers, but also overgrazing. And the cause of their disappearance is due mainly to the agriculture expansion, meaning grassland that are converted to arable land, and also agricultural abandonment, especially in the areas with really high slopes, and when we have dry grasslands, because of these areas that are not easy to farm actually. So from a biodiversity perspective, there is an urgent need to, on one hand, restore these habitats, and on the other hand, to stop the different pressure on them. Regarding the restoration of habitats, at the EU level, there is this new law that was presented last year by the Commission, the Nature Restoration Law, that is on the table. And as it was mentioned by Maria, in this law, the target is to restore 20% of the ecosystems in Europe. Grasslands are also, are on the focus of this restoration law, and actually it could be the restoration of grasslands by like dry grasslands, but also wet grasslands, because there is a specific provision on rewetting wetlands and peatlands. And as I said, the other way of tackling the pressures that are occurring on the grasslands, it's also to stop the pressure, the pollution, to stop the bad management practices. And this can be done through the CAP. The CAP, the Common Agriculture Policy, is a tool to preserve and to maintain the really valuable grasslands. So I will just give you some, how is it done through the CAP? So it is done through the conditionalities. Sorry,
Marilda, because I think that we are time-wise a bit limited.
Okay.
With the initial
So I will just say that grasslands are maintained through the CAP through the conditionalities provision, but there is also another tool that is called the eco schemes, that are schemes on the voluntary that farmers can use, and these schemes have a budget that can incentivize, for instance, the conversion from arable land to grassland. Like in Hungary, there is a specific eco scheme that is provided to farmers. The problem with these eco schemes is that they are not competitive for farmers, meaning that the money that it's with these schemes, it's not enough. So we think that there is scope of using this grassland and this biomass for in the bioeconomy, for instance, for insulation or other commodities that can be very it could be a way to replace commodities that are based on fossil fuels, but we will need to be aware of the quantities that we can get from the ecosystems, because we don't want to incentivize management practices that would jeopardize biodiversity conservation. And also this precious biomass need to follow what the cascading principle, and its use as material should be always prioritized before the use as energy. And I finished.
Thank you very much. Very interesting points there. Well, I would have one question still for the panel, but Susanna, we also wanted to open up the floor for the audience. Now it's 4 o'clock already. How should we proceed?
Yeah, we are delayed. So it's the moment for the questions or the attendees. So I'm going to see if in the chat we have any question.
If there's no question from the chat, maybe I can just
There is
ask
not.
one question back to the panelists, especially this instrument. I think that Maria Lupkol proposed, as I understood it correctly, it would be something like an you called it environmental and climate bonus, something that would honor, let's say, efforts from farmers that go beyond what is in the cap. Something we discussed also in our breakout session. How far is this in terms of you know, is it just a general idea, or is it in the process already of being brought on the table? And how do you see also the other panelists? How would you see this as an opportunity for grass-based businesses? Maybe
Yeah.
Maria Lupkol would
Thank you
start.
very much for the question. It's not just an idea, it's already been started into action. This has been done by our head association, so the German Farmers Association, in cooperation with all the farmers associations of Germany. So right now it is just a position paper that has been presented, which can be downloaded at the DBV. But yeah, it is already in process, and we hope to achieve that all the valuables that come with saving grassland and working to build a new valuable chain are at least financially provided, so that the farmers actually have reason to work on their whole their whole environment and how to actually work with grassland, because not all the farmers are animal farmers, of course. Those that are right now on my parents-in-law's farm, they are just out and about and getting the second green grassland harvest for the cows, and they start with haying as well. So this is at the moment the main focus for farmers, and I think it's interesting if we can do more with grassland, but this needs to be financially stable.
Yeah, thank you. As I see, this is like this propositions on the table. On the other side, I see the statement of Marilda Dascalio says, okay, the ecosystems schemes, they include this already, but as you said, also they are not very competitive for the farmers. So maybe they need an upgrade, or they need to be, complemented. Maybe I would like to hear from James, and from your perspective, and also from what I know in our demo case in Denmark, it's not just like one. Usually, it's not the one policy that's a silver bullet in the guarantee, but a combination, right, of different instruments for funding, for regulation that need to be somehow aligned and implemented. But how would you?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, please.
Well, I think what has been proposed is helpful, because I think in green biorefineries and the broader bioeconomy, when we're looking at these bio-based materials, an awful lot of the benefit that comes from comparing, let's say, bio-based versus fossil-based is coming from the sequestration that happens with the feedstock, more so than what happens downstream in terms of conversion processes. So to have some mechanism in there in the business model that's rewarding farmers for that aspect of it can be a really good tool. It came up actually during the group. Rami brought up the point around also the products that are being produced, which can provide long-term carbon storage. If there's a mechanism to somehow include that within the business case as well, this would really help too. But as you said, there are different instruments and different things that we need to consider as well. And when I traveled to GoGrass event in Denmark 2 weeks ago, I really found it very interesting to see the work that the Danish ministry is doing to support the development of green biorefineries by helping to de-risk the technology for the early movers who want to implement this technology in the market. And a lot of these are agriculture stakeholders, cooperatives. This is new technology, so it's a risk for them. So this mechanism is allowing part of their costs to be covered. It's also allowing them to do some feasibility work to understand the viability of the model. One of the things I think as well, Philip, from our side in Ireland is, and it goes back to the earlier speaker who mentioned the prioritization also of the cascading approach within bio-based value chains as well, because in Ireland, we are looking at, and right across the EU, especially with the Repower EU directive, there is a big focus now on producing biomethane and removing ourselves of being dependent on Russian fossil fuels. But we currently have a situation in Ireland where we have a biomethane strategy which is under development. There's a risk, I think, if we overly subsidize this at the expense of materials or proteins or other areas, and we don't manage that very carefully, we could find ourselves really pushing towards a biomethane only approach when we have so much potential to meet the protein needs, the material needs, and other market needs that we need in society.
Yeah, that's great to highlight also. I mean, this trade-offs that exist, and maybe this is also the pitch for the last contribution from you, Marilla Ascali, on what do we need actually to reconcile on one side, providing incentives that the farmers invest, that they become productive in not only in terms of food but also materials production, but at the same time also do not hamper the environment, in particular bird life, of course. So the last word is yours, Marilda, if you would like to answer to that.
I think that we would indeed, there are a lot of trade-offs to be considered when we question land and how we use the land, because the land, it's not extensible. We have just only one. It's completely limited. So it's very important, I think, to find the win-win situation where we can indeed try to use the grass for feed purpose, in order to have animals that are an extensive mode, and we don't depend on the feed imports. It's also important to have grasslands for nature restoration perspectives, and it's also important to have grass for I would say bioeconomy. But the thing is that it's going to be very difficult if we want to reach, and if we want to optimize all the three needs. We will not be able to grow and how can I say, to replace all the elements we're doing with fossil fuel only with bioeconomy. It's not sufficient land. So I think that yes, it's very important to think wisely and to have strategies and a really good planification on how and for what are we using the land.
Wonderful. I think that was a very, very nice concluding word for this panel, and I would like to leave it there. Thank you to all the panelists and also the audience for participating. And Susanna.
Thank you very much to all the speakers for all this rewarding session, and also to the attendees. So I think that we had very interesting insights to continue for the final part of the GoGrass project. So all this feedback is going to be very helpful to prepare also our final event that is 14 in February, I think, and also to disseminate the results and share the last conclusions with the policymakers. So, and also thank you to all the collaborators to the other projects that we will continue on the same page. And for the attendees, just a kind reminder that you will find the presentations in our GoGrass website. So I think that maybe for the next week will be available, right, Natalie, I think? Okay. Have a lovely evening.